Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who's a cynic. Hope you're doing well. And today, as I'm waiting for the box office numbers to drop for Monday, so that way I can compare to see what kind of drop-offs we're going to see for films like Jumanji and, of course, The Rise of Skywalker, I came across this article from Bounding Into Comics, which I found quite interesting, seeing that Disney has made it very clear, or at least the sequel trilogy, Disney Trilogy, Kathleen Kennedy, etc., have seemed to make it clear that this is the end of the Skywalkers, seeing that this is supposedly, Episode 9, the end of the Skywalker Saga. And yet what's interesting to me is the fact that they keep on bringing up characters from the Skywalker era, and therefore it doesn't seem like they're ever officially going to be done. It just seems like they decided to use Rise of Skywalker, End of Skywalker Saga as a marketing tactic. Oh my goodness, what a surprise! As a marketing tactic to try and get a bunch of butts in seats, which may have worked for some people, though based on the numbers that I'm seeing, not really working as much as I think they wanted it to. Again, there's nothing to complain about when you're making around 1.2 or projected to make around $1.2 billion for a film, which would be probably a few $100 million of actual profit gains. We'll have to wait and see if we get any updates for the actual production cost and also what their final box office number will be. But I do find it interesting that they try to market the film in that way, banking on that being the end, and yet they continue to move forward. And now if this rumor is to be believed, so again, this is rumor territory, it looks like they might be continuing to bring this about, not just in the series itself with the Obi Wan Kenobi series, but also by bringing back another character from the Skywalker Saga, which actually would be Luke Skywalker himself. So the rumor now, John Trent covers this over at Bounding Comics, is that the young Luke Skywalker will appear in Obi Wan Kenobi series. Now, does this mean that we're going to get the really bad CGI version from The Rise of Skywalker? Most likely not. Basically, what this is trying to talk about is that they're seeming to want to cast a younger actor to play a younger Luke Skywalker because they obviously ruined the chance to be able to pick up any stories after The Return of the Jedi when they decided to go the sequel trilogy route instead of maybe following some of the designs that George Lucas laid out, but of course that is coverage for another day. So the new rumor details that a young Luke Skywalker will appear in the upcoming Obi Wan Kenobi series on Disney+. The rumor comes from Daniel RPK and was allegedly posted in his Patreon account. Reddit user Sidon Ithano reported the rumor on the Star Wars Leaks subreddit. Sidon Ithano recaps the rumor from Daniel RPK. The scoop, in quotation marks, is currently only available on his Patreon account. According to RPK, the series will show Obi-Wan meeting Luke for the first time since handing him over to Owen and Beru. Ithano does caution that the scoop is just rumor at this point. Daniel RPK is very hit and miss with his Marvel and DC scoops, which he is most known for, hence the probably BS tag. So it looks like he is definitely someone that is sometimes right, but usually wrong, again, with the BS tag being attached to that. But it is still something that is interesting nonetheless, because as we all know, Reddit rumors recently have been pretty spot on. Now, that's mostly been from Darth Praxis, but at the end of the day, I think that it's something that we should at least hear and we should at least consider, because would anyone really be surprised by them doing this? I know that I wouldn't be surprised. The fact that they are continuing the Skywalker Saga, whether they want to admit that's what it is or not, what do you think the story about Obi Wan Kenobi is going to be dealing with? If you're talking about Obi Wan Kenobi while he's still alive, it means that in all likelihood, he's going to be on Tatooine looking over Luke Skywalker, is going to be trying to protect him, is going to be trying to protect his secret. So if that is indeed the case, which I don't really see them going in any other direction with it, do they maybe take the story so that he has to leave the planet to protect him? They could do that, but in the end, it's still going to be hovering and revolving around the Skywalkers. It's still going to be revolving at least around Luke Skywalker. And I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe even decide to do a series about Leia Organa and how she was grown, and how she was raised. Maybe making a young Leia series. I could totally see them trying to bank on this nostalgia because they did it to the best of their ability with The Rise of Skywalker. I think they ultimately failed at that. I know that a bunch of people have come out recently who finally have seen the film. Big names like even Ben Shapiro, who said, oh, you know what, this film's actually, I'm going to praise this film for trying to at least give people fan service, unlike The Last Jedi. And yeah, you might have those fan service elements, but in my opinion, and I think also just the objective reality of the story itself, it just creates this giant mess because every single scene is them trying to do fan service, and it doesn't really serve the overall story. It might make you feel good because that's what fan service is supposed to do. It's supposed to make you think, hey, I'm a fan and I recognize that, and hey, I got that reference, and wait, Chewie got that? Oh wait, I understand this. And at the end of the day, that's all fine and dandy, but then when you take a step back and you say, but wait a minute, how does this happen? How does this connect? How are we able to explain any of this? Some people would say, oh, you're being too technical, you're being too nitpicky with the story, but I would look at that and say, no, this is just the general plot of the story that doesn't even make any damn sense. But as you can see, they have no problem trying to basically to throw cheap fan service elements into their stories to try and get those views, to try and get those people into seats. And now in this case with Disney Plus, to try and get more people to subscribe to their Disney Plus service, especially since rumor is that a lot of Disney Plus subscribers have now canceled since The Mandalorian is now officially over. Guarantee you'll have a lot of people signing up now that it is over, so that way they can binge watch it with their free trial and then cancel it immediately after that. And I think that's something that even someone who is non-anti-Disney like I am can understand that that is most likely true, because what content does Disney really have at this point that can keep people attached to their service? Yeah, they've got the aspect, or they've got the promise of Clone Wars Season 7 coming up sometime in February. They've got the promise of the eventual Obi Wan Kenobi series and all of the Marvel series that are in development, but there is no current live weekly show. Mandalorian was all that they had, and I think it's interesting that they didn't really plan that out. And based on my use of the service, because yes, I do have Disney Plus, thanks to Freya the wife for making me purchase that, but what I've been able to see is that they were not ready for the rollout of this service. This service is so buggy. The fact that they can't even get the keep watching feature to work. Basically, when you go to your continue watching, it jumps back like 5 or 6 episodes. My wife and I are currently watching through Boy Meets World. And every time we go to the Keep Watching tab, it doesn't pick up for the last episode. It ends up pushing us back about 6 episodes. So that's a very small thing that I feel like they should have fixed and they should have addressed. But it's obvious that they weren't ready for prime time. And so now they're left in this lull where they have no content. And so all they can really do is either have these shows with these characters to try and get people interested in their service, or at the very least to eventually buy their service, or to maybe put out fake rumors and try and get people out that way. And I'm not trying to say that Daniel RPK works for Disney and that he's putting out fake rumors, but these people all have sources, and some of these sources are pretty reliable, and some of these sources do sometimes put out fake information because they try and test the waters about what fans would feel about a young Luke Skywalker, about many other things, a plethora of other things that might come into account as well. And personally, I think that it would make sense. I feel like if you're going to have a story about Obi Wan Kenobi already, you kind of have to have a young Luke Skywalker at some point. If you're not just going to reference him, you should at least have him as maybe a child. Maybe you pick it up almost immediately after he's there. Maybe you have a very, very young child, maybe a 6-year-old playing a 6-year-old Luke Skywalker. That would not be, I think, as hard to do. Or are they going to try and have Luke Skywalker be a teenager and try and make him more of a part of the series? Personally, I don't think that would be a good idea, because that would require you to retcon certain things, because obviously they should not really have any meetings whatsoever, because, obviously he knows of old Ben, but he doesn't really have a relationship with old Ben at that point in time. So it'd be interesting to see how they try and play that up, and if they continue to try and basically bank on nostalgia and bank on the original trilogy. So, going back to my original point, I think it's amazing that they continue to try and bank off nostalgia and to bank off of, the end of the Skywalker Saga, while basically now promising that we will continue to get more stories from the Skywalkers. It's just the theatrical world that we're moving on from the Skywalkers, while most of the Disney Plus shows are going to be very much based off of the time of Luke Skywalker, because obviously that was the central point of this story and of this galaxy. Again, when we look to the stories that were developed by George Lucas, all of them were around the Skywalkers. All of them were around this family and all their friends and all the connections that they had. So it makes a lot of sense that you would have a lot of ancillary shows and movies that would be attached to them as well. But I do think that this shows that Disney still doesn't have any idea what the hell it's doing. I trust content creators like Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni when it comes to animation, not so much with live action. I feel the episode he directed and wrote was one of the weakest episodes of the Mandalorian series, for example. But I do think that there are really interesting content creators now that are in charge of these shows. You have Deborah Chow, who directed 2 of the best episodes. There were 3, I would say, great episodes for The Mandalorian, 2 of which were directed by Deborah Chow. So having her be in charge of the Obi Wan Kenobi series does give me some hope for that series. But once again, when you have stories like this and rumors like this coming out that actually do make logical sense when you think about what the story is going to be about and what it has to be about, it kind of makes you start to wonder what kind of ideas are going on behind the scenes, and maybe is it time, for there to be some change of leadership over at Lucasfilm. I know we've been saying that ever since The Last Jedi came out, and some people even since The Force Awakens came out, but I think that now, especially when you look to the interviews, you have George Lucas making it seem like he's like, when you have him talking to Kathleen Kennedy in that interview right after the deal was made and saying, oh yeah, I have all these stories and I'm giving them all these things and I can't wait to work with them and I can't wait for, my world to continue on and to live on and to be able to help in that process, not in the creative seat, not to be in the, charge of it anymore, but to at least have a helping hand in it. And for Kathleen Kennedy just to be there like, oh yeah, we respect you, we're going to respect your characters. And then we get what we get in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, and you think to yourself, man, they just crapped all over his legacy, and they've actually made Star Wars a much weaker IP because of that reason. And it makes you understand why their numbers are not nearly as strong as I think they honestly wanted it to be. Again, we don't have the actual numbers right now, but last time I checked, it was around $725 million that it's made so far internationally, which is great, but that's still roughly around $100 million behind where The Last Jedi was at this same time. And if that $100 million difference continues to hold, well, guess what? That means the film's going to come in around $1.2 billion, which will make it the lowest grossing of the Disney trilogy and potentially one of the lowest grossing domestically of the entire Star Wars saga when you adjust for inflation. So anyway, let me know your thoughts about this. Do you think that bringing in a young Luke Skywalker into the Obi Wan Kenobi series is going to raise anyone's interest, or do you think that people and fans are just so burned by Disney at this point that this is just kind of rubbing, salt on the wound? We'll never forget what they did, what Rian Johnson did to Luke's character when he completely destroyed his character. When he made Luke do things that Luke would never do, and then try to say, oh, well, it's been a long time, and I'm never going to explain or show you what he went through other than this one scene that doesn't make any damn sense with oh, now I'm going to kill someone even though I went so far as to be willing to die to save my father, but now I'm going to kill my... Okay, what? Doesn't make any damn sense. But anyway, let me know thoughts about this stuff and all things we've talked about in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.